Welcome to the Brainiate Show, where we talk about all things Salesforce, sharing the coolest features, solutions, and best practices to turn you into a Salesforce rock star. Here's your host, former attorney turned Salesforce consultant and trainer, David Giller.
Hello and welcome. Happy Tuesday, everyone. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be talking about how to improve user adoption in Salesforce. And this is a huge pain point for so many organizations. So many organizations go ahead and they spend so much money on Salesforce licenses, on customizing Salesforce, on migrating the data, on introducing all kinds of sometimes desperately needed, sometimes nonsensical customizations that just take it a little bit out of control, spending so much money on all of that. And then fast forward about 6 months later, a year later, several years later, and adoption is low. And there are actually quite a few reasons why adoption is really low for Salesforce. And it has nothing to do with the technology. It has everything to do with the way it was implemented and the way it was rolled out and the way it's being supported or maybe not supported by the users, by the organization. So first, let's talk about why is adoption of Salesforce important? Like, hey, we have Salesforce and the team should just be using it. They should know why it makes sense for them to use it. So like, why should we even care? User adoption is important because if people are not using the system, that means they're using something else. A sales rep, a customer service rep is using something else to keep track of the things that they are working on in Salesforce. And if they are using something else to keep track of the prospects, the customers, the deals, the customer service tickets, that means that your data in Salesforce is pretty much useless. It's not reliable. It's not the centralized place for people to go within the organization to pull accurate reports, even an accurate mailing list of who are our customers in the database. If the adoption is low and then the data quality is low, pretty quickly, someone within the organization is going to say, then why do we even have Salesforce? Why are we wasting all of this money on Salesforce? And why do we have all of these Salesforce admins and developers and BAs and project managers supporting a system that nobody is actually using? So it becomes very quickly, it becomes a terrible domino effect, a cycle that just builds upon itself. And usually the reasons, when you start to dive into the reasons why user adoption is low, you're going to see that many of them are easily addressable without pulling your hair out, without buying any additional apps or other systems or programs of any kind. So that's what we're going to dive into first. So some of the reasons why adoption is often low in Salesforce. First of all, very often there is no stakeholder support, where basically senior leadership within the organization just doesn't care. They don't care if people are using Salesforce or not. Other times, the users are not involved in system design. And when I say that, I'm not trying to say that, oh, ask your users what the screens should look like. I'm not saying that whatsoever. When we say no user involvement in system design, what we mean is nobody's really asking the users what they need, what they do on a day-to-day basis. What pieces of information do they gather, do they rely upon in order to do whatever it is that they're doing when they're qualifying prospects, when they're working with customers, when they're creating a quote or a proposal to send out to a customer. And if nobody's asking them and the system is essentially being created in a vacuum, there is going to be a mismatch between what is in the system and what the people actually need. If I'm an employee and I have the best of intentions to use Salesforce, but I'm talking to a prospect and there are certain critical pieces of information that I need to gather from the prospect and I don't have a place of where to put it in Salesforce, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up a notepad or Outlook or Google Doc or a spreadsheet, and I'm going to start capturing it there. And if I'm doing it there, then why am I bothering to put it in Salesforce? Because in my mind, Salesforce is useless to me because I can't use Salesforce to actually do my job. I want to do my job, but the system is not allowing me to do it because I don't have a place to put or to pull the pieces of information that I actually need. So no user involvement in system design. That's what we mean by that. Next one, closely related, there's no open communication on system changes. How often is it that a new enhancement is being introduced into the system, whether that enhancement is internally generated from within your organization, we're introducing a new customization, or something is being rolled out, whether we like it or not, by a Salesforce release. And nobody is explaining to the end users why the page layout looks different, why the navigation is different, why we have, or just the fact that we do have new pieces of automation in place, or a new third-party app appears on the screen. So nobody is communicating with end users. That ends up resulting in a system where people are basically saying, I don't use it because each time there's another surprise. Each time I log in, things are in a different place. Nobody's ever explaining to me why. I don't know how to use it. I'm just confused. I'm overwhelmed. And I don't feel like reorienting myself on what the system is or where I can find things every time I log in. I have no one to talk to. Nobody is explaining anything to me. Another reason why user adoption is often low is because of aversion to change. There are some people who are very against change. They like doing things the way that they have done things. So any change of any kind, you might have crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's and everything I mentioned earlier, but you simply have people within the organization who they don't want to do things differently. They feel that the way they've always done it is great and it works, and there's no reason to change any of it. That is more of an emotional, psychological thing that we need to tackle, but it needs to be addressed. And we need to acknowledge that this is one of the roadblocks that we are faced with within the organization as it relates to low user adoption of Salesforce. Next, another reason why we have low user adoption of Salesforce is because nobody's pulling metrics. Guess what? If we were pulling metrics of all of the deals created, or opportunities updated, or opportunities closed won or closed lost, or new prospects created, or new quotes that were sent out. If we are pulling those metrics from Salesforce and only from Salesforce, that by itself will encourage our users to be using Salesforce, because that indicates that senior management feels that Salesforce is the record of truth of where we're going to pull our metrics. And if we're not pulling it from there, that means that I can be a renegade employee and I can use Excel to keep track of my own pipeline. Nobody cares. So there are no metrics that are being consistently pulled from Salesforce. Next, no user training. Many of you know that I am very passionate about training, not only for end users, but also for admins. If you don't have end user training, now, by the way, I've seen many instances where people will say, oh yeah, when we first rolled it out, we had end user training. We spent about an hour teaching everyone how to use the system. Give me a break. First of all, how many years ago was that? Second of all, even if it was last week, to just spend an hour for brand new employees, or for people who are new to Salesforce, or people who have not, it took you months to build out all of the customizations, all of the enhancements, everything that you've wanted to do in Salesforce, all of the pieces of automation and the integrations that you have in Salesforce, and you spent a grand total of an hour teaching people how to use it. It takes about an hour just to teach people all of the core features that they need to use on the homepage in Salesforce. That by itself takes about an hour, let alone how to create list views, how to search for records and find all of the related records, how to update a related record, how to pull reports and dashboards, how to add filters to reports, how to see my open pipeline, how to see my open leads, how to see my open dormant cases that I am responsible for. All of that takes time. And more often than not, in many organizations, a ton of money is spent on the project and very little is left for end user training. So usually one of the main reasons for low user adoption is because the users were never taught how to use the system. So they're overwhelmed, they're confused. Give someone a smartphone who has never seen a smartphone before, they have no clue how to use it. To them, it's a paperweight. They don't know what to do with it. And lastly, we have poor data quality. Now, the poor data quality can come in from all sorts of reasons, all kinds of sources can be putting in the poor data quality. But either way, you could have had all of the things addressed that I just mentioned earlier. All of those were completely done. So everything is in place. But if we have poor data quality, for example, people are just importing spreadsheets of duplicate, half-baked, inaccurate, outdated data and just putting it into the system, or someone put in an integration that keeps shoving in garbage data into the system. If I'm an employee and I'm trying to do my job and I'm trying to look for one of our key customers and I do a search for that person and I see 12 different records for that person and each one has different information and I have no idea which is the right one to use, yeah, that's a garbage system. I'm going to use Excel because in my Excel spreadsheet, I'm the only one who puts stuff in and I have no surprises about what it's going to look like tomorrow when I look at it. So those are the most major, most common reasons why we have poor data quality in Salesforce. Let's talk, poor user adoption in Salesforce. Now let's talk about some of the things that you can do in order to address it. So the first thing you can do is get leadership buy-in. And you know what? It's not that difficult. I've worked with many organizations where they turned to me and they said, listen, we have Salesforce and we've had it for a couple of years and we've introduced all of these customizations into it and user adoption is low. And I'm like, what are they using instead? And they're either using the legacy system, which was never unplugged. They're using Excel spreadsheets. And the first thing I ask is, what does senior management say? Is senior management putting their foot down? Does senior management care? And they say, yeah, senior management, they really don't care. They agree that the old system was good or Excel is just as good. So senior management just doesn't care. And I turn to them and I say, there's pretty much nothing that I can do as a consultant. If senior management is allowing that nonsense to continue, it'll be a waste of time. I can go ahead and I can train people and I can show them all of the wins, what's in it for me. But if senior management doesn't care, it's coming from the top down. Senior management has to put their foot down and they basically have to say, this needs to be the centralized system that we're using as an organization. And if they don't do that, everything else is missing. So you need to get leadership buy-in. The next thing that you can do, and by the way, a lot of people feel as anyone on the team, you could be the Salesforce admin, you could be anyone on the team responsible for Salesforce within your organization. And a lot of times you feel that the biggest complainers are like your enemies, that they're out to get you, that they are making your life miserable. What I'm about to suggest is the exact opposite. Basically, what I'm suggesting is that those people who are the biggest complainers, those are the people that you want to align yourself with. You want to partner up with those individuals because what you want to do is basically turn to them and ask them for all of their pain points, all of their feedback. You want their unfiltered feedback on why the system sucks, why the old system was better, why they can't use this system. You need to gather all of that feedback, and that will help you recognize the gaps of what the team needs in order to do their job, what is missing. You might find out that the screens are very cluttered. You might find out, like the example I gave before, that there are missing fields, missing data points that they need to be able to capture that they just can't do it in the current system. They might tell you how they see, not forget even on a particular screen for a particular record, that simply when they log in, there are too many tabs, too many colors, too many charts on the screen, and it is completely overwhelming for them. They feel like they just walked into a circus. So you need to partner up with them. You need to hear what their pain points are, and then you need to start taking action on those pain points. They might articulate that the data is a mess, the data is a disaster. So that's why I'm using my Excel spreadsheet. You need to listen very clearly to what they're saying. By the way, many times the things that they're going to say are going to actually excite you because you're going to realize as they're talking that some of the biggest pain points, the biggest blockers that they are frustrated with are actually so easy to address. They might be telling you things like, I don't have where to put my logged calls or my open tasks. Because you see over here, I just keep going in the description field for the contact. And that's where I put the date and my initials and the fact that I left them a voicemail. But then I can't see, I don't have any way to remind me, to alert me what I did last or what the open items are. And you get all excited because you realize, oh my God, this is so easy. All I have to do is teach them how to use activities in Salesforce. That's all I have to do. It's really simple. A lot of times, the major things that the end users need are very simple to do. Most of the time, the native features of Salesforce suffice for them to do their job. But either way, if additional customizations are needed, go ahead and listen to them and then take action on what they're telling you. And also, you need to make sure that the people you're talking to, that their pain points are reflective of their team within the organization, their department, their functional group within the organization. So you need to make sure to partner up with someone, not just the person who's the individual renegade. They just like to do things their way, and their colleagues on the same team are doing things differently. You need to get a sense of, is what this person is articulating, is this representative of the pain points for the team in general? And when you start taking action on those things, the person who becomes the loudest complainer, they are then going to become your biggest champion. They are going to not only sing your praises, showing off that you are the superstar who helped resolve those problems. They are going to actually be doing your job by then turning to their colleagues on the team saying, oh my God, you know how freaking cool this is? Before I had no idea how to log calls or how to get my alerts or how to see my open cases. And boom, now it's just a click away. It's so easy to do. They will changing the entire environment within your organization and starting to get people excited for very legitimate reasons, for all of the same reasons why this person was reluctant to use the system in the first place. By the way, one of the other things that you can do in order to address this is you can create it's a double-edged sword, the wall of shame, as well as the internal celebrations of success. What do I mean by that? Let's say one of the things that we encounter as we're uncovering why there's low adoption, people are saying that the data quality is low and we have lots of duplicates, or let's say we have a lot of contacts in the database. Let's narrow it down even further. We have a lot of tier 1 customers within the database. So the account is categorized in some way as a tier 1 or gold tier, gold, silver, bronze. So let's say it's a gold tier, but the contacts within the database, most contacts don't have their email address. And we really want and need their email address. One of the things that you could do is you could start pulling reports or dashboards to show, grouped by the user, by the account owner or contact owner, all of their contacts that either do have an email address or do not have an email address populated. And once you start putting that out there, you could put it on the homepage. You could start emailing it out to everyone on the team on a regular basis. That becomes the wall of success, because now we could say, oh, look at that. Susan is doing a fantastic job of cleaning up all of her contacts. Most of her contacts are now cleaned up. They all have email addresses. Versus Joe over here. Joe, most of his contacts do not have an email address. So that very often will start to incentivize people to start taking action because they don't want to be embarrassed that they look really bad, or they are a little bit competitive and they want to appear as being ahead of the curve and doing better than their colleagues in terms of whatever metrics it is that we are showing off. So you could do that with even the number of logins, the number of opportunities updated in the last 7 days, opportunities created in the last 7 days, prospects converted in the last 7 or 14 days. You can start being creative on whatever metrics you find relevant based on the biggest pain points that you see within the organization. All right, there was a lot of, by the way, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to segue over into showing you some really cool stuff in Salesforce on a slightly different topic. I want to see first, I'm looking at the chat to see if there were any particular questions that I need to respond to. So by the way, I am looking for everything that starts with a Q to separate out comments from questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, great. So next up, I am going to show you how to use, many of you are not familiar with this, with the latest release of Salesforce. We now have the ability to edit records inline from a report screen. Similar, not identical to, but similar to the way we can edit records in a list view. Okay, so here we are in Salesforce. This is my demo org. So all of the data that you see here is completely fake. So what you can see over here, and there's nothing magical about this report. I can even show you here. I'll go ahead and click on any random report. It really does not matter. And whatever report I look at, come on, Salesforce, keep up with me. And whatever report I can now see over here that there is a pencil icon. See that when I hover over a lot of these cells? So not necessarily all. In this particular report, there happen to be a lot of cells that I can edit. So you can see here, state province is shown with a padlock in gray. So it's not editable. But if, let's say, I am looking at this report and I realize, oh, wait a minute, this lead, Frank Sinatra, is showing in the lead status of open contacted. So what is it that we have to do before this release? Before this release, basically, we would have to go over here, Frank Sinatra, open it in a new tab. We then open it over here. We have to either click on edit, or we can go ahead and click on, if you have path available on the screen, you can go ahead and choose another status and then go here and click mark status as complete. Then you go back to your report and you either refresh the browser or you go and you click over here to rerun the report query. And then so that was the way you did it before. With the winter 22 release, and I'm going to show you soon how to do this. With the winter 22 release, you can now go to any report, and depending on the field that is being displayed, so there are some limitations. There are certain fields that you cannot edit in the report, but otherwise all of the other fields, you can just go over here. You see the pencil icon, you click into it, and now you can see, because it's a pick list, it's showing as a pick list. So I can see all of the other options that are available. I can then go ahead and hit save and watch what happens. So here, this is a little quirky. So we can see this confirmation notification over here where it says it was updated. But when you look over here in the main portion of the screen, it's, wait a minute, I just updated this guy. Why on earth is he still showing as the status of open contacted? So the quirky thing is, what you still have to do is you still have to either click over here to refresh the report, or you can just go in the browser to refresh it from there. And either way, once it reruns the query, what you're going to see is, come on, you can do it. What you're going to see here now is that record of Frank Sinatra is showing with that updated status. So the one quirky thing is that you have to hit refresh in order to actually see the update. The record did, in fact, get updated, by the way. So if I go over here, for example, and let's now go ahead and change the phone number. So I'm going to put in some random phone number. And I'm going to hit save. And since I have that other tab open, so now you'll see when the page, it sort of looks like it refreshes, but it really didn't. So now the phone number still appears as blank. But if I go into the actual record, since I have it over here, I'm going to now refresh this tab, this window, where I have that Frank Sinatra record open. We're going to see that the phone number field that I just put in of 212 with a whole bunch of twos, it did, in fact, update the record immediately. It's simply the view of the report did not get updated until I hit the refresh button. Then it's going to display in the report. So in case you're wondering how to do this, so this is not turned on by default. In order to run this, hang on, I have the window open here somewhere with the link to the help. So the first thing that you need to do, so this is in beta right now, which means it's only available if you have to raise your hand to Salesforce and say that you want this feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the link to, hang on, I'm going to share with you the link to this article. I'm going to put it in the comments on YouTube. So you have the link to the article. And basically what you need to do in order to turn it on is you need to open a ticket with Salesforce support asking them to turn on this feature. Once the feature is turned on, then as you can see over here, let me move it because my floating head is blocking. From setup, you will then go into Quick Find, and when you query for reports and dashboards, you will see an option called Reports and Dashboard Setting. And there will be a checkbox there for enable inline editing in reports. So once you go ahead first you need to go ahead and log a ticket with Salesforce support, asking them to turn on this feature for you. Once they go ahead and do that, then you go into setup as the admin, you go into this particular section, you populate the checkbox, you hit save, and boom, that's it. It's done. And this is pretty cool stuff. So even though it's a little bit quirky, I'm hoping that it will improve over time. It is in beta. I would totally recommend you go ahead and play around with it. This is the kind of thing where you, depending on the organization, you might want to first open it, turn it on in a sandbox, get senior leadership on board with communicating it out to the public in general, to all of your users, then go ahead and turn it on in production and communicate to your users. Going back to the point I made before, if you want to increase user adoption, you need to be really good at communicating to your users about all of the updates that you're making in Salesforce. So then go ahead and show them how it works. Make sure to also show them, similar to the way I just showed you now, that even with it activated, when you go ahead and you make a change to something, yes, you'll get the notification that it got updated, but you still need to hit refresh in order to refresh the screen. But don't worry, the record actually got up. Anyway, that's it for me on inline editing. Let's segue over to answer any questions that you might have. Here's a good question by Brandon. How do you get your users to care about the data integrity? The sales reps are always trying to shortcut the data entry. Honestly, this is something that I would position it as, here's how this is going to come back to bite you if you try to abbreviate the process. Or the flip side of it is, if you put in the data accurately, then here are all of the pieces of automation that we're going to have here that are going to actually work. Here are all of the list views and the reports and the other queries that we have where your data will appear clean in these reports. Dude, if you don't put in the appropriate number in your opportunity amount field, then when it comes to pulling your opportunity pipeline, your numbers are going to be off. A very common use case for this is when it comes to email marketing. So with email marketing, very often in many organizations, we want to segment the distribution list of who is going to get the emails that we're sending out. And when we're doing that, we're filtering off of some specific criteria. It could be criteria at the account level, based on industry, based on SIC code, based on geographic location, based on the size of the organization, how many employees they have, based on the revenue, based on the number of closed won opportunities that we've had with them. It could be based on the individual, based on their job title. If they don't have vice president listed in their job title, if they're not listed as being on the executive level, if they don't have an email address, if their name is in all caps, guess what? We're going to have a problem. So there are two ways. There's a little bit of a carrot and a little bit of a stick. So you can choose which approach you want. But basically, you have to tie it back to how it impacts them, how they will benefit from putting in good data quality, or how they will essentially suffer by having bad data quality. That's my recommendation, Brandon. Okay, let's see over here. Are there any other questions? Hang on. Nancy. How do you get management to understand these concepts? I've been trying for years to get them to understand. I need to have these conversations. Honestly, I see it in such a simplistic way, and maybe I'm looking at it too simplistically. The way I see it, we're paying a lot of money as an organization. We're paying a lot of money for Salesforce licenses. And by the way, even if you're a nonprofit and you're leveraging the 10 free NPSP licenses that Salesforce gives, you're paying a lot of money for people to support Salesforce, or we are relying on other systems to pull data from Salesforce. And if we don't have those underlying concepts, if we are not making sure that the team is actually able to do the job that they need to do on the Salesforce system, if we are not making sure to train the users on how to actually use the system, it's a waste. Then the question is, why are we doing any of this? So I would boil it down to that simplistic level when interacting with senior management. And very often that is enough to get them engaged. If for whatever reason, and it can happen, so I'm not going to ignore it. If for whatever reason they are still not going to be engaged, because that can totally happen, then what I would say is give up. Because if they still don't care, then you're barking up the wrong tree. I at some point I would just give up. I would basically say, there's nothing I can do. The data sucks because you don't want to put your foot down, senior leader within the organization. As soon as you're ready to put your foot down, something will change. And then, by the way, that also means for you, for your own career, you need to figure out, is this a place where I want to work? Because if you are excited about Salesforce, if you're excited about introducing solutions to help the organization work more efficiently on the Salesforce platform, you're being blocked in a major way. You're spinning your wheels. You're not going to get a whole lot of traction if nothing is going to change. So if you find yourself in this position, you might start looking for another job. I'm not saying run out the door because senior leadership won't listen to you. I'm just saying this might be a really good point for you to say, you know what, I'm not excited about this job if everything I'm doing is a waste, because in the end, the employees are like a bunch of toddlers with no parent. They could do whatever on earth they want. Nobody cares. So why should I bother? That's my take on it. Let's see what's some of the other questions that might have come in. Gaby, yes, it's from I'm assuming we're talking about the inline editing in reports. Yes, it's from the winter 22 release. In your opinion, is CPQ as soon as possible or only after the database and the main processes are in place with the users adopted already? Honestly, this is a really good question. And the issue is, in a way, even bigger than CPQ. The issue is, should we continue to build more on a system where the data sucks and people aren't using it consistently? Because is it really going to help? If the thing you're introducing is one of the missing links that the organization, that the team, those users who are not using it consistently, if this is going to solve for one of those pain points that are currently missing, then 100% yes, go ahead and do it. If not, so let's say I'm going to use a different example, not CPQ, because again, the situation is not specific to CPQ. Let's say we're talking about an organization that's considering using Pardot. By the way, I encounter this very often with my own clients, and the Salesforce user adoption, or let's say the data adoption is mediocre. The data quality, particularly for contacts, is terrible. And the senior leader is all excited about swiping the credit card to get Pardot. And they will turn to me and ask me my opinion. And I'll say, Pardot is great. Pardot is a great tool. It's a powerful tool. But guess what, dude? Do you want me to show you what your data looks like today? Right now, your data has a whole bunch of contacts and we can quantify it. Here's how many contacts do have an email address versus those that do not have an email address. So if most of your contacts do not have an email address and we wave the magic wand, we press the magic button and Pardot is implemented and you have all of the content that you're ready to hit send to do your email distributions. Do you realize that only 20% of the contacts in your database are actually going to be receiving this email because most of them are missing email addresses? It's a valid conversation to have that might then ignite what the conversation that I talked about earlier of getting senior leadership to put their foot down and basically tell everyone, sorry, but this is the only system that you can use moving forward. We've tolerated Excel spreadsheets. We've tolerated all of these other systems up until now, but that's it. It's coming to an end. This might be the catalyst to get them there. So to answer the question back on CPQ, you have users today who are reluctant to use Salesforce. And they're currently using Excel spreadsheets and Microsoft Word and whatever it is that to put together the quotes, the proposals that they're working on. And now we're introducing CPQ. And we're hoping and expecting that the team is actually going to use CPQ and all of the pricing and all of the packages of products and related products that are coming in from CPQ. You have to turn to senior management and say, okay, this is great. Wave the magic wand. The system is implemented and it's perfectly configured and everyone knows how to use it. But if the team is going to still continue to use Microsoft Word and Excel to keep track of their opportunities and to generate quotes, what's the point? What are we doing it for? So that can be a pivotal moment for the senior leader to then say, I guess I really do have to put my foot down. Anyway, that's my recommendation. All right, let's see if there are any other questions over here. Okay. So I do have some questions that folks gave me in advance. And if I can only find that browser window where I had it, here we go. So the first question is, let's move it over here so it doesn't look like I'm looking to the side. Copy, and I'm going to paste it right here. So the first question is, how do we map lead status to a custom status field on the contact object? Now, I have not personally experienced this business use case because honestly, in my opinion, I would ask the question, why on earth do we have a status on the lead as well as after conversion have a status on the contact where we want to map it? Like, to me, I don't know the rest of the context of what this organization is trying to achieve. But to me, it's odd. I would think that if the record starts off as a lead and then it gets converted, even if we do want and need to have a status field on the contact, which by the way, it makes a lot of sense for all kinds of reasons to have a status on the contact, then we have the initial default status. So when the lead gets converted, it automatically defaults to a particular value in the contact status field. That's what I would do. But that's not what the question is over here. The question is, how do we map lead status to a custom status field on the contact object? The way I would do that is as follows. First of all, for those of you who are not familiar with lead mapping in Salesforce, when you're doing lead mapping, you're identifying, here are the fields that we have on the lead, and upon conversion, here's where that value should get placed on either the account, the contact, or the opportunity. The standard lead fields that Salesforce gives out of the box, the standard lead fields, are not available for lead mapping because those are by default mapped already to the contact, account, or opportunity, depending on what field it is. So the lead status field is a default. It's a standard out of the box field. If you want to map that to a custom field contact, then you need to have a custom field on the lead in order to even have it available for mapping. So the way I would do it is I would basically have a quote unquote hidden field on the lead object. That hidden field would automatically get populated with whatever the field is in that lead status field. So I would essentially replicate the value into the custom hidden field, status field on the lead. And then once you do that, it then becomes that field now, but that custom lead field now becomes available for lead mapping. And you can simply map that field over to the contact status field. So that's how I would accomplish that. But again, I don't know the rest of the context of what is trying to be accomplished here on whether or not it even makes sense to even try to achieve this. Next question is one of my favorite topics, actually. I'm struggling to get clear business requirements. I am struggling to get clear business requirements from my users. Any suggestions? Yeah, we all struggle with this. We struggle with this all the time. And there are lots of reasons why we struggle with this. But either way, we need to start asking probing questions. It might be annoying. It might be frustrating, but you're not going to be able to do your job unless you ask probing questions. So like let's make believe for a moment that someone will ask, very common thing, they'll ask for a particular field on a particular screen. Hey, can you give me an industry field on the opportunity screen? And yeah, that would make my hair. What are you trying to do? Turn to the person asking for this particular request, and we start probing in, asking some deeper questions. Can you tell me a little bit about what it is that you're trying to achieve? Do you want this to be a text field? Do you want it to be a pick list field? What are you trying to do with this particular field? What is the reason? Why do you need this? And very often they will start to explain what the business context, the process around that particular enhancement that they're asking for more often than not. So first I'll walk you through here's what will happen if you don't ask those questions and you simply leave your follow-up questions to, is it a text field or is it a pick list field? You're going to give them whichever one it is, you're going to give it to them. And over time, they're going to come back and they're going to complain. Why are they going to complain? They're going to complain because it doesn't solve for whatever it is that they needed. If it's a text field, you're going to have people put in typos, all kinds of funky abbreviations. They're going to want to start to group their opportunities by a particular industry. And then only later on, and it could be months or even years later, what you uncover is that what they really want is to track the industry associated to the account, the customer that's associated to the opportunity. If we already have an industry field on the account, then all you really need to do is make it a formula field to pull down the value from the related account, the customer account, to simply display it on the opportunity screen. Now, that's only if the rep actually needs to see it. Maybe they don't even need to see it. They just want to be able to pull reports off of it. If they want to pull reports off of it, chances are you don't even need to create a field because it's available in report. You can simply pull into any report the account industry field along with all of the opportunities and group the opportunities based on the opportunity owner. So asking the appropriate probing questions, usually asking why repeatedly until you get clarity, until you get down to the nitty-gritty details of what is the business problem that you're trying to achieve. So you need to get there. Once you do that, then we need to figure out, is the thing that they're asking for, is the solution that they are asking for actually even going to help them at all? And a lot of times it's not going to help them because they have no idea what the other options are. The business users are not familiar with the database architecture. They're not familiar with Salesforce best practices. They are not familiar with a lot of the native features that Salesforce has. So they're going to ask for things because that's what they think they actually need. So that's the abbreviated version. I actually have a whole course on gathering business requirements and making sure that the business requirements are confirmed and accurate and thorough, and a little bit of CYA, how to document the business requirements so that the business users don't come back and point their finger at you and say, you got it wrong, you screwed up, because you actually listened to them. So those are things that you might want to consider. All right, I see there are a couple of other questions over here, so let's go back to that. Tunji asks, to aid user adoption, how about attaching users' KPIs, sales reps, for instance, to the adoption and use of Salesforce? That is an excellent point. And I am actually going to show you. Let me switch up my screen share over here because I'm actually going to show you how one way that I address this. And just adjusting my screen. And let's go back to the screen share. Okay, so in this instance of Salesforce, I'm going to sort of take a step back. You all know, I'm sure, what it looks like when you're in Salesforce and you search for any user. So in this version of Salesforce, I'm logged in right now as Michael Franco. I'm assuming that I don't have another org open right now. Hang on one second. Let's see if I can just quickly open another org to show you. For those who are not familiar with it, some of you might be totally brand new to Salesforce and not familiar with what the default screen looks like before I show you my highly customized screen. So the default screen that we have in Salesforce is what I call a splash screen. It's pretty irrelevant. Like, it's hard to get real use out of it. By the way, what I'm doing on my other screen right now is I am opening up my production org, but I don't want to show you that to you right now with my opportunities and customers and prospects. So what I'm doing is I'm navigating to the screen that I want to show you, and then I will pull it on the screen share. Okay, here we go. This is what the default screen typically looks like in Salesforce. And you're lucky if you have an end user who actually uploads their picture, and you have a default banner. And then you have this over here, which is pretty nonsensical, right? We're not getting a whole lot of use of that. I actually have learned a way to customize that screen. So here I am in my fake version of Salesforce, and let's simulate. I think I have a user here by the name of Susan. Yes. So let's make believe I am a sales manager or a sales leader, and I'm about to have a one-on-one meeting, an employee review meeting with one of my teammates of Susan Parker. So I am simply going to search over here for the user record of Susan Parker, and it's going to bring me to her screen. Now, it's really the same page, a highly customized version, but it is the same page that we were looking at before. But now we are looking at, there's a lot of old data in here, so don't mind that. We can see over here it's broken up by tabs. These are all metrics that are specific to Susan Parker. So these are account metrics. Here we're looking at accounts by last activity date. If I want to look at activity metrics, I simply click on this tab, waiting for the data to run. And come on, Salesforce, keep up with me. Let's go. You can do this. Here we go. And if I want to see the underlying records, all I have to do is, hang on, I can't open it in another tab. I can open this up. I don't want to navigate off of the screen. I can open this up to see all of the underlying records. If I want to see any of her lead metrics, here I can see all of, now I could update the display here to show all of her leads by conversion date, all of her leads by created date, all of her leads by lead status. So I can break it down in a gazillion different ways. Here we're looking at opportunity metrics. Here we're looking at case metrics. So I can have this one-on-one review. You know what? Now I'll go ahead and I'll click on any one of these reports. So now I can see once the data comes in, I can see all of the underlying details. So I can see the trends of how she's doing with whatever metrics it is that we're looking at. And then, by the way, let's make believe Susan is about to walk out of the office and her colleague, Nicholas, is about to walk in. So I'm going to have my one-on-one review with Nicholas. And here I can see these Nicholas's metrics that are all specific to him. So I can see from a user adoption, user data cleanliness perspective, user progress perspective, I can see exactly what's going on. And I guess he doesn't have any leads. That's why that's showing up. And he might not have, oh, he has some opportunities. Anyway, the way that I did that is, let me actually show you over here. I'll go into edit page. I freaking love this hack, by the way. I'll call it a hack. All this is updating the Lightning page. And what you will see over here is I simply put a whole bunch of tabs. I named them whatever I wanted to name them. And these are report charts. And this is pointing to a report, accounts by last activity date, and it's filtered by the user ID, the user record that I'm on over here. That's all this really is. So of course, I had to make the underlying reports, but then the reports are actually getting filtered on the page layout itself based on that particular record. So this is completely scalable. Nicholas leaves the organization and 3 new employees come on board. I don't have to do anything different. Those reports are still going to work in the exact same way for all of those new employees. As soon as the new user records get created, those pages are going to be there. So that actually is a great way to track the user adoption and user data quality directly at the user level. Okay, let's see what other questions we have over here. This is a good one. Do you think Process Builder is about to phase out? My understanding is that, first of all, I'm not a Salesforce employee, so I can't say with any definitive anything. My understanding is that Salesforce is looking to do away with workflow rules and with Process Builder and basically have everything be a flow. So the short answer is yes, that is my understanding. Now, by the way, behind the scenes, when you create a process builder and you save it, behind the scenes, it's actually creating a flow. So it really is a flow. It's just with a much simpler user interface to create and update the process builder. So in a nutshell, what I think we're really getting at is, should I be learning flow? If I don't yet know flow, I'm really good at process builder. Should I be learning flow? My answer is yes, absolutely. The wonderful thing is there's a tremendous amount of resources where you can go ahead and you can start learning flow. There's a ton of resources out there. Let's see if there are any other questions. Okay. I don't see any other questions coming in. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I appreciate it. If you've got any other Salesforce questions that you want me to answer in a future session, or if there are any particular topics that you want me to focus on in one of these future live shows, go ahead and hit me up and let me know, because I actually have a long list of topics that I want to cover, but I want to make sure that I'm talking about things that you find relevant. And by the way, here on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe to make sure that you get notified when I have another live stream online. All right. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.